We have a tier list today, and this one is going to be the Resident Evil games I have played, including the new one. And there are some side, non-main storyline games that I have played. I have not played them all that are on here. So I think what we'll do is go in kind of order. Let's start with the very first Resident Evil game that I ever played, which was on the PlayStation 1. Um, and that is going to be the original Resident Evil. Now, these games are based after all these years of playing them and going back and playing them. So I'm going to put the very first original Resident Evil in A rank. So S rank being the best, A rank being second best. Boring rank is exactly that, and zombie rank means they're dog shit. So the very first Resident Evil, I mean, it was crazy when it came out. There were like two versions of it. There was the Japanese version, which had the non-edited opening cinematic, and then the American version had the edited cinematic. And in Japan, it's called Biohazard. Uh, but it was a introduction into this series that has been going on for decades now. Introducing a tank control system with zombies and stuff like that, horrific moments and horror. And this came out before Silent Hill and any clone Resident Evil type of games. But this spawned the series right here. Playing it all these years later, graphics are obviously dated and old. However, the nostalgic feel you get from playing it, no matter what edition you have of it, because they did re-release a director's cut and quotations director's cut version of the game. If I recall, it added DualShock, which your controller rumbled because the very first original one didn't have that feature. And the director's cut was meant to like have the uncut version of the original cinematic, but it didn't. Uh, so yeah. Uh, but the original, you can't deny that it is the one that spawned it. It got nostalgia and certainly introduced us all to the world of Resident Evil. So let's go on into A rank. Okay. Resident Evil 2 is going to be my favorite all time. Uh, the original and the remake, but we'll get to the remake. Um, Resident Evil 2 came in two discs, and you could play as Leon or you could play as Claire. And it had a really cool second run where you have Mr. X show up chasing you through the game, busts through walls and all that. Um, and Resident Evil 2 just was really cool in its locations, and it was bigger scale. And it kept a lot of the very first game there with the puzzles and the combat and the horror and the jump scares and all that kind of stuff. And it introduced us to Leon Kennedy, who is a big protagonist in this series for sure. Um, Claire was a new character that got introduced as well. In the first game, you had Chris and Jill, Wesker, Barry, and then some side characters that were killed off. But Leon, the story with him being his first day on the job, and then there's a outbreak in Raccoon City is quite the introduction for that character. And the game is a lot of fun. It's playing it now, like even with the dated graphics, still holds up. Uh, with pre-rendered backgrounds and stuff, still holds up pretty good. Um, and when I get to the remake, a lot of what was in the original, they basically ported it over to the remake. But we'll get there. Okay, Resident Evil 3. Where are you? Mm, uh, there it is. Resident Evil 3, the original. Mm, this one's tough. I'm going to put it in boring rank, but it is more towards A rank, a little, in terms of scaling, but boring rank I'm putting in there. Um, Even, well, replaying it, what was it, a year or two ago? Um, Being chased by this nemesis all through the game. This is like the first game that uh, did that. I mean, they kind of had a hint of that in Resident Evil 2, the original there, where you run through a second time and you got Mr. X following you, but Nemesis shows up a lot. He has a rocket launcher, and the game makes the game a lot harder in terms of that because he's a boss that you can't kill, and you just can slow him down. Um, I mean, it did have like the options of different pathways, which was cool, and the Carlos character was cool. It's just that to me, Nemesis, the original anyway, just felt like a rehash of Resident Evil 2 in parts. I mean, it's pretty much the storylines are running almost parallel. I mean, it's interesting in some ways, but I think um I don't know, Resident Evil 3 just felt, well, there was like newish parts. It still felt like remnants coming off of Resident Evil 2, if that makes sense. Uh its graphics are dated, sure, but that's not the reason it's in that boring rank. Uh it's a game that I mean, the original anyway, that I would kind of be like, I'd rather play some other Resident Evil game than this one. Um, I will get to its remake when I talk about that, but yeah, I'm gonna put that in the boring rank um, because I'd rather play the ones that are above it a lot more than the original third game. Okay, so Resident Evil 4. Uh, hmm, this is gonna be a hot take. Boring rank. Now, hear me out on this. It's the controls for me. The controls I did not like in the original Resident Evil 4. It drove me insane. Other people, sure, it worked out for them, but for me, I did not like the controls of it was the first game too being in third person of the character instead of the tank controls, which is fine. And I couldn't enjoy the game because of the controls. Um, I mean, there was a lot there, and I would have liked to have been more happy to play it. But it's like RE3. It's just not a game that I would revisit for the original uh, game itself. And again, we'll get to the remake when we get there. But The biggest thing was why it's in boring rank is because of the controls for me. Did not like it. It's not necessarily the gameplay itself, it's the controls that I just cannot stand. Uh, so that's why it's there. Not for the gameplay, the controls just take it right there. Resident Evil 5, didn't like it. I didn't like Resident Evil 5. I didn't like the story. Graphics were kind of odd. Uh, a lot of I wouldn't say the controls were 100 times better than Resident Evil 4, the original, but I just did not like 5. Me personally. If they remade it, I'd check it out. Um, See if it kind of like what they do with it. But honestly, 5, even though it was the return of Chris, it just didn't do it for me. 6 is going to be in zombie rank as well. I'd rather play 5 over 6. 6 just it has tried to the different scenarios, the different characters you play through. I was fine, I suppose, but it just seemed like they were throwing everything in this game, and I very lost a lot of interest in it. Part of the controls were off. Graphically, I don't know. For that, a lot of the areas were very dark and needed to turn up the brightness to play it, and not because it's dark for a reason. It's just that the way certain areas were in the game that were pitch dark. Uh, just because I don't know when they made it. It's kind of like a movie when it's like too dark and it's not really meant to be dark and you're supposed to see what's on the screen. It's kind of that's what I'm going for here. So Resident Evil 6, didn't care for it. I mean, I wouldn't care if they remade that. It's not a game I'd revisit. Okay, so I think Code Veronica came out. Yeah, around Resident Evil 4, I think. Oh well, we're gonna rank it now. Um, Code Veronica, boring rank. Now, I replayed this game a year or two ago, and I wasn't happy with it. The controls were fine. The tank controls are fine. Um, I didn't care for a couple of characters in it. The story was kind of meh. I know they're working on a remake of there, and I'd be quite interested in that. Because they can clean up some areas in the game that were kind of eh. Um, I mean, it was kind of a side Resident Evil, I guess. Um, you, Claire and Chris return. Uh, or was it Jill? Fuck. Let me make sure, okay? I sometimes get confused between Claire and Jill. Claire and Jill is it bounce back, but I think it's Jill actually. No, it would be um main characters. Let's put that. Yeah, it is Claire. Yep, Claire and Chris. Cool. So Claire and Chris. Yeah, they. This one's you play as Claire at the beginning, and then you go into Chris's thing. Um, much of the game is in this like compound. It does get cool when you go to the Antarctica um, for that section. I just felt that playing through Code Veronica and now, like a year or two ago, I felt that it could have had a lot more to it. Um, and yeah, the two characters in there that were annoying. Uh, yeah, I hope that the remake. They're probably not really going to change the story because they haven't really done that with the other couple of remakes they have. But I hope they add to the game, and that will be cool. I think out of all the remakes that have come out, I think Code Veronica would be the one that really needed it the most in modern gaming right now. But we'll get to four. Uh, yeah, that's really all I'm going to say about Code Veronica. Fortunately, it goes there in boring rank there. Um, I would play it probably over the original 4 and 3. Call me crazy, but it is what it is. So, Resident Evil Revelations, I'm going to put both of them, 1 and 2, and Zombie Rank. Didn't care for them. Um, the story was kind of interesting, but I don't know. I just didn't care for the gameplay. Um, graphically, eh, they're fine, I suppose. Uh, I wouldn't care if they got remade. I just didn't gravitate towards those games. I got really bored in them. Um, and I don't remember the stories being too exciting. I mean, they were there. Uh, that's as much as I care about those two games. Uh, let's see. I guess we can do the remake in Zero now. Zero is going into zombie rank for me because I do not like how you have to bounce back and forth between Rebecca and Billy. Um, I think it would have been cooler. I mean, it's fine to have like a character tag along with you as like an AI or whatever, or have another player play as that character. Fine, but when you're doing like single player and you're bouncing between two inventory systems, and you got to make sure that the other character doesn't get killed or attacked wherever they are, it kind of bogged down the game a lot. It was cool that we got Rebecca. We were able to play as her again, like actually for a whole game. That was cool. The story's all right. The story's all right. It's got a lot of bugs and the bosses are different and stuff, but it just like the original Resident Evil 4 because of the controls takes me out of the game. And like I have to say with Resident Evil Zero, if it wasn't for the terrible inventory system between the two characters there, my enjoyment of the game would be so much better. Um, the reason that it's not in boring rank is it's just a game that lacks a lot. It just felt like it was a game that was rushed out. If they make a remake of it, which is a possibility, I would be interested in that to see kind of how they remake it. I would hope that they would fix that two inventory system there because it's just ruins the game in my opinion. Uh, yeah, actually I might throw it in boring rank. Yeah. And it's a shame with the original Resident Evil 4 and with Zero, like like gameplay mechanics, it just takes me out of the game because then I can't enjoy it. I can't enjoy the game, and I'd like to enjoy the game because it had both obviously had the potential for me personally to enjoy those, and yeah, the Resident Evil remake, the first Resident Evil, the remake, amazing. I was actually playing it this morning, going back through it as Chris. The added graphics, the um, the reminder of the horror, the additions of scares and stuff that they added to the game is phenomenal. And it was the first Resident Evil remake they made that was awesome. And personally, I don't think that it needs to be remade again. You're gonna have it like third person, like the other remakes, but honestly, it doesn't need it. It really doesn't need it. It's a classic, just like the original Resident Evil One original is a classic. Um, but they did a fantastic job, and it is definitely up there with the original Resident Evil 2 for me as favorites of mine. Okay. Uh, what do we want to do now? Operation Raccoon City. Uh, I dabbled with that game. The graphics are good. It had an interesting concept of kind of like this multiplayer during the outbreak thing, from what I remember. But ultimately, it's just like not a game that I'd revisit. Umbrella Corps is utter shit. I could not get into that game. Controls sucked. The graphics weren't the greatest. The um, what is it? You had to like collect these things a lot of the time from the bodies, I think, of zombies or whatever, and the concept just totally sucked. It's a forgettable game. Uh, yeah. Um. Okay. Resident Evil 2 remake, right at the top, as good as the original Resident Evil 2. I love the fact that they kept a lot of the concepts and stuff from the original Resident Evil 2, but added, uh, new things, new scares, and stuff like that, much like the Resident Evil 1 remake. Fantastic remake. It's incredible. It's like a new experience you're feeling by playing through the original storyline of Leon's first kick at the can in the storyline, right? Love how it starts out, where the original started out with an explosion separating the two characters. This one here kind of like sets up before that a little bit. And it changes a couple of things, sure, from the original, but it's a fantastic game. I've played through it a bunch of times. The only thing is that I wish that the second run through would have Mr. X and the first run through not have Mr. X. Just to make it like kind of different. Um, Mr. X chasing you throughout the RPD for the most part, and then later on in other areas, it gets annoying after a while. I would have rather them have Mr. X show up in the second run through of the game, but they throw him in like right away. I mean, there's kind of a way around activating Mr. X in the first run through, and until you get to the jail, you know, you kind of can do that in the second run. It's all about getting the medallions to open the way to the underground. That where you come in and there's that statue, and you got to use the medallions to like open up and get underneath to that area. But I would have preferred like the second run of the game being like the original concept of it, where it's like things are placed different, and if you picked up stuff with the first character, there's maybe some that's missing there, kind of thing. But other than that, RE2 remake is fantastic, and I play the hell out of it. Same as the original. Like every now and then, I'll go back and I'll play the original Resident Evil 2. So they're at the top for me. Um, Resident Evil 3 remake, I'm putting in a rank. Funny as that sounds, where the original Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, I mean, had concepts and stuff that are missing from the remake for sure. But I don't know. The more I replay Resident Evil 3 remake, the more I like it as more of an actioner, uh, more than that, than the horror aspects. I mean, there's a bit of horror in there, but I mean, the most horrific things is like the one section where you have to shut down or turn on the power, and there's like these spider-like things that can poison you, and then the sewer area where they have these like really creepy frog-like creatures and weird-looking blobs. But other than that, it's an action-heavy Resident Evil. And sometimes I like that. Sometimes I like throwing a RE on where I'm just blasting zombies and whatnot. Yes, the Nemesis does chase you, but it's. I like the fact that it's sectional, kind of like the original was, where it's parts that he chases you, and then once you reach a certain checkpoint, I guess he stops chasing you, and then he'll chase you later on when you get to another section. Um, Whereas Mr. X in the Resident Evil 2 remake, he's constantly after you. Obviously while you're in the police station for the majority of the game. Um, but Nemesis for an action-packed Resident Evil game, the remake, I like it over the original. It's crazy how that sounds. I understand that Resident Evil Nemesis, the original, had like pathways that you could choose, which were cool. But at this point, I got used to the remake because I played that a lot over the original. So maybe that's why it's up there for me. Resident Evil 4 remake, vast improvement over the original for me personally. The controls are key. Can make me enjoy that game so much more, and really think back to the original Resident Evil 4 and like what I really, really kind of not missed per se, but kind of like get why people put it up there as like their favorite of the series. Um, and it is action filled, but Resident Evil 4 maintains the puzzle exploratorization a little bit more in some ways than the other Resident Evil games, I think. Um, but yeah, Resident Evil 4 remake, fantastic game. Leon Kennedy kicks ass, and the boss fights are pretty nuts. And I like what they did with like the one particular fight against the bad guy. That sequence there was cool. Um, Vastly superior, in my opinion, to the original RE4. Matter of opinion. So Resident Evil Biohazard, that's going in S rank. This one is probably the creepiest, scariest in terms of horror at least for, I guess, the first half of the game, in all the Resident Evils, in my opinion. It's got, obviously, they took like a page from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series, which I'm not a fan of, but the way they kind of like implement the horror here, and you're introduced to Ethan, the new character here. It, for first time playing it, it really gets you. You're chased and all that, and eventually you do get, more action based. But I think Biohazard needed to. Resident Evil as a whole, I think, needed this refresher. Um, especially after 5 and 6, in my opinion, which were technically the last in the main line of games. And turning it into a first-person adventure was risky, but I think it pays off really well. Um, it's like I said, for the first half of the game, it's like the most crazy horror-driven game, in my opinion, out of like all of them. It's kind of like where you play the first game, the first Resident Evil 1 original, and you get to that scene where you're coming around the corner with your character, and it's a cinematic of the zombie eating one of your teammates, and he gets up, and, it's kind of like that, where you're like, holy shit. Resident Evil Biohazard is a holy shit game. Like, like I said, for the first half. So that's going why it's in S rank. Phenomenal job of like revamping the horror element in this franchise. A Village and putting up there an S rank. Another really solid Resident Evil game, where you're again playing as Ethan. It's, I guess, actioner, but I love the locations. I love the environments. And I guess you could look at Biohazard and the Village as kind of like Ethan's arc in this whole series. Um, and it's a very interesting one because it kind of connects back to the other games, but it still remains to be, pardon me, Ethan's story. Whether or not they're gonna have him in anything else, who knows? But he's a very interesting character, and I'd be cool if they made another game with him somehow. Yeah, so the Village is cool. Like a lot. That one you can actually have a first person, and there is I think a DLC where you could play third person. So, um, solid game. And finally, we have Resident Evil Requiem. It's amazing that Capcom innovates every game. And Resident Evil Requiem innovates again. You have Grace, a new character introduced here, and then you have Leon coming back. It was a kick-ass hero, and Grace's section plays as a horror, more horror related, where Leon's is more action related. And it's cool how they do that, where they have. It's kind of like what they do with Code Veronica, where you play Claire for a while, like half a game, and then you play Chris for the other half. But here, I like how they merge two elements, where you have Grace being her horror side of what's going on, and then Leon's side, which is like, that more action based. And they connect beautifully in one, I guess, area that Leon goes to connect back to Resident Evil 2. And it's fantastic the way they did it. And it continues like this franchise. And it's very impressive for what they did there. And from what I hear, DLC is coming for it that's apparently story DLC, so it's going to be interesting to see what that is. But Requiem is amazing and is at the top. And so that's my ranking of all the Resident Evil games. I know some might shock you in my ranking of how they are. Uh, but this is my own personal thoughts and opinions of it. I mean, everybody would say that the original Resident Evil 4 is like their top. Why are you putting it in boring rank? But that's because of the controls. I just don't like the controls in the original game. Had that been different, it would probably be in a better ranking than it is now. But yeah, let me know in the comments what your top favorite Resident Evil game is all time and why. And what your least favorite Resident Evil game is of all time and why. It'd be interesting to know what you think in the comments. But hope you enjoyed this video there of the ranking of the Resident Evil games. And it continues to go up for this franchise, and it's one of the few video game franchises that hasn't really gotten stagnant. And even the ones in my zombie rank, okay, even those games, at least they were like trying different things, trying different storylines, and they didn't work for me, but you know they work for other people, right? Maybe out there's people that just love Resident Evil so much that they put all the games in S tier, but who knows? But yeah, I'm looking forward to the Code Veronica remake, probably as like the next remake that I've heard that they're doing, because I really want to see what they're going to do with that one. Um, because I hope that it rejuvenates Code Veronica, that game, because I think while Code Veronica is in the boring rank here, I think still that it has potential to fix itself and be better, to go up in rank for that remake. But we'll have to see. And no word on when these remakes are coming out. There's rumor that Resident Evil Zero is being remade, but they're rumor until we see an actual trailer and it's official that they're coming out. So right now, I think they're working on the DLC for Requiem. And it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out for sure. Anyway, thank you for watching the video, and don't forget to like and subscribe.